Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar DM, the channel dedicated to breaking down barriers for new players and dungeon masters alike. As always, my name is Howard, and today we're going to be covering the Warlock class for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the spellcasting class that gets its power from a pact that it makes with an otherworldly entity. Sounds interesting? That's what I thought too. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so we're talking Warlocks today. Now, Warlocks are really interesting because they're very difficult to kind of explain as far as a pop culture reference, but basically what they are is that they're magic users that get their abilities to use this magic as a gift, basically, from a patron of some sort that has of higher power that can actually grant them these different abilities and stuff. Now, in order to go over the Warlock properly today, we're actually going to go over the Warlock from level 1 to level 20 here, and then we're also going to go over the 3 different basically otherworldly entities you can choose from, which is really interesting, and we're going to go over those. And then we're going to go over to the computer and actually break down a level 1 character sheet as an example for new players wanting to learn how to kind of make their own sheet. Now, again, like I said, Warlocks are going to be very interesting, very complicated. They're very roleplay heavy. And if you have any questions about the Warlock as we're going through this, make sure you leave a comment down here in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions about the Warlock or anything else Dungeons & Dragons related. And then also make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell for the channel, because there's a pretty good chance I'm going to answer a lot of these questions, and I'm going to also present a lot of other useful information about Dungeons & Dragons in future videos. All right, so let's talk Warlock. So now, at level 1, we're going to have to make a choice. We're going to have to pick our otherworldly patron. So we're going to be able to pick from the Archfey, the Fiend, or the Great Old One. And these are basically kind of our subclass options that we're going to be able to pick here at level 1. We're not going to go over them right now. We're going to go over them after we finish this whole base level kind of Warlock class. But we will go over all 3, just so you can get an idea of which ones are available to you and what you can kind of get from each one, which is really cool. Now, regardless of whatever pact that we choose from with these otherworldly patrons, we're going to get Pact Magic. Pact Magic is going to use our Charisma ability as its modifier, and we're going to get 2 cantrips at first level to cast from the Warlock spell list. Now, if you go to page 106 in the Warlock, in the player's handbook, we're actually going to find the Warlock table. And this table is also available on dndbeyond.com. And I'm going to leave a link to that down here. I'm actually going to leave a link retroactively to all the other videos that I put out, because I found that these tables are actually free and available on that website, and I want you guys to have a good look at those. So again, I'll put the link on this video and any of the other spellcasting videos or the other classes that get spellcasting previously to this video. But like I said, 2 cantrips at level 1. We're going to get more as we level up. The table's going to show us what we get. We're also going to get spell slots. Again, these are going to progress as we level. The table in the book. And at level 1, we're going to get 1 first level spell slot. Now, the funny thing about Warlocks and Pact Magic is that no matter what happens, as we level up, you'll see eventually we're going to get higher level spell slots. But the thing about that is that every spell that we cast is going to be cast at that higher level. So say at further levels we eventually get access to 3rd level spells and we have 3 spell slots. All of the spells, even if we cast a level 1 spell, is going to be upcast to a 3rd level spell. And you'll see how that kind of plays out in the Warlock table, like when the spell slots kind of upgrade and stuff like that. But it's a very interesting kind of mechanic, and that's why Warlocks are very unique compared to other spellcasting classes. Now, our spell slots are going to recharge on a short or long rest, so that's also really good too, because we don't get as many spell slots, but like I said, they get upcast, but we are going to be able to recharge them more often than some of the other classes are going to be able to. And then the number of spells that we know, again, the table on page 106 is going to show us that, but the spells that we know at level 1, we actually know 2 first level spells. So just keep that in mind. Again, they're going to progress as we level up. Now, our spell save DC is calculated just kind of like all the other spellcasting classes, except it's using our Charisma modifier. So spellcasting save DC is going to be 8 plus proficiency bonus plus our Charisma modifier. And then our spell attack bonus is going to be our proficiency bonus plus our Charisma modifier. So nothing's really changed there. And then as we gain levels, we can actually replace a spell that we know with another spell on the Warlock spell list for a level that we can cast. So kind of like Sorcerer, when if we want to change something, we can't do anything until we level up. And we can't change them once we gain that level. We're stuck with those spells until we level up again. But then when we do level, we can change them out and stuff like that. But again, we will learn more spells. So the many of times that you're going to be doing this is maybe very few and far between, but just something to keep in mind if you don't like a certain spell that you took and you want to change it out. At level 2, we're going to get Eldritch Invocations, and we're going to learn 2 of them. And again, we're going to get more of these invocations as we level up. Now, you're probably wondering, why would I want to increase my Charisma modifier as we play if you're a veteran player? Now, the reason why you want to do that is not only will it make your spell save and spell attack bonuses go up, but it's actually going to have an impact on some of these invocations as well. So having a good charisma modifier is going to be really helpful depending on the kind of character you want to play. So keep that in mind. We're going to get 2 at level 2, and I'm not going to actually cover them today. There's actually there's a really long list. But again, D&D Beyond has that list and an explanation of all of those different invocations, and I will leave a link down here so that way you guys can see that, because I don't want this video to get any more long-winded than it already is. So Eldritch Invocations, there's a ton of them. There's double digits of them. I don't want to cover each one. I'll put a link down in the description below. Now, we're also going to have to pick another thing. So we kind of have a subclass within a subclass here. So we have to pick our otherworldly patron at level 1, and then at level 3 we got to pick a pact boon. So we can pick from the Pact of the Chain, Pact of the Blade, or Pact of the Tome. If we go with Pact of the Chain, we're going to learn the Find Familiar spell, and we can cast it as a ritual, actually. It's not going to count against our spells known, and we can choose the following forms for our familiar. We can choose Imp, Pseudo-Dragon, Quasit, or Sprite. Really interesting. And whenever we use the attack action, we can actually forego one of our own attacks and have our familiar make an attack of its own as a reaction. So very interesting. Kind of plays a little bit like the Beastmaster Ranger a little bit, but with a little bit more flair. A different kind of a partner there too, which is really interesting. So maybe Pact of the Chain is for you. Pact of the Blade is also a very interesting subclass to pick from, is what I'm going to call it, subclass. Now, as an action, we can actually create a pact weapon to appear in our empty hand. We can choose the form that this weapon takes. We are proficient in it while we are wielding it, so it could be a martial weapon. And Warlocks actually only get access to simple weapons, but with this Pact of the Blade feature, we can actually pick any weapon we want. Really cool. And the weapon is going to be considered magical now as a result of the fact that it is this pact weapon that can appear in your hand. And it's going to overcome that resistance or immunity to non-magical slashing and stuff like that because it is a magic weapon, which is really good. Now, this weapon is going to disappear if we part with the weapon and we have it more than 5 feet away from us and it's been that far away from us for a minute. So the weapon is going to disappear. The weapon's also going to disappear if we use this feature again. And we can also dismiss the weapon early with no action required. Or if we die, the weapon will also disappear. So basically, we can call that weapon. If we throw it and we want to recall it back to our hands, we can make it disappear and then bring it back into our hands with another action. So pretty cool. We can also transform any magic weapon into our pact weapon by performing a ritual that takes over the course of 1 hour. And we hold it during that duration. So this basically, during a short rest, you can take a magical weapon and make it your pact weapon. We can dismiss this weapon early as well, kind of like our normal pact weapon, but it's going to go into a weird extra dimensional space, and it's going to reappear when we recall the weapon again thereafter. Now, the weapon's going to cease to be our weapon for our pact if we die, and we can perform an hour ritual to change the weapon. So if we want to pick a different magical weapon, we can do so. We can also untether ourselves from this weapon by using the same ritual for 1 hour as well. So very interesting. And if we choose to break this bond, or if this bond does break, the weapon will actually appear at our feet if it was in that extra dimensional space. Now, the third option that we get at this level 3 Pact Boon improvement is going to be Book of Shadows. So, or Pact of the Tome, which will allow us to get the Book of Shadows. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself now. We're going to be able to choose 3 cantrips from any spell list. So whether it be Bard, Wizard, whatever the case may be, we can pick any 3 cantrips. And it doesn't have to be all from the same list. It can be on a different list than our own. And we can pick 2 from Bard, 1 from Wizard. We can pick 1 from Paladin, 1 from Cleric, and 1 from Bard. We can do whatever we want. Now, they're not going to count against cantrips that we know either, which is really good. And they're going to become Warlock spells for us if they're not already on our list anyway. And if we lose the book, we can actually perform a 1 hour long ceremony to receive a replacement book from our patron as well. This can be done during a short rest or a long rest, and it destroys the previous book. And if we die, the book will just turn to ash. So kind of acts a little bit like that Pact of the Blade, but a little bit different here with Pact of the Tome, but still very interesting, very cool. At levels 4, 8, 12, 16, 19, we're actually going to get ability score improvements. So we can actually improve 1 ability score by 2 points or 2 ability scores by 1 point. The other thing we can do at this level is to actually take a feat here. Now, depending on your game, your DM may or may not allow them, but if you're able to take a feat, there are some pretty interesting ones like Warcaster that could help your Warlock depending on the situation and the kind of game that you're playing or the kind of character that you want to play. But ability scores are going to be good too. It's going to be able to increase our spell save DCs and our spell attack bonuses. If we go with Charisma, there's a lot of cool different things we can pick, so ASIs are going to be good for you too. Level 11, Mystic Arcanum. We're actually going to be able to pick a level 6 spell from the Warlock spell list and label it as an Arcanum spell. And basically what this means is we're going to be able to cast that 6th level spell without expending a spell slot, which is going to be really good because we already are not going to have a ton of spell slots anyway because we're a Warlock. We're only going to have a certain minimum. They will recharge, but we're only going to have a little kind of resource of them. So it's kind of important that we get this Mystic Arcanum. And we have to take a long rest before we can use this Mystic Arcanum again. Now, at higher levels, we're going to get more spells to do this Mystic Arcanum with. We're actually going to get more. We're actually going to get one more at level 7, at level 13. It'll be a 7th level spell. We're going to get an 8th level spell at level 15 and a 9th level spell at 17. So we're going to basically get 4 Mystic Arcanum spells at the player character levels 11, 13, 15, and 17, and they're going to be 6, 7, 8, and 9th level spells respectively. Really cool. Very nice. We can also recharge all of these again on a long rest. So say if we use 3 of our 4 Mystic Arcanums, they all recharge after a long rest. So it's not like we have to do a separate long rest for each one. They all come back. Really cool. And then at level 20, we're going to get Eldritch Master. So we can spend 1 minute basically entreating our patron to help us out. And what they're going to do for us is they're actually going to give us all of our spell slots back. That we use in our Pact Magic feature. They're not going to give us our Mystic Arcanums, but they're going to give us all of our spell slots back, which is really nice. So basically, we're going to have more uses of spells. It's going to be really helpful for us, and we're always going to be upcasting them. So at level 20, we're only going to have 9th level spells at all times, so really cool. And then in order to use this again, we have to finish a long rest. But still, short rest, we get all our spells back too. So depending on how you're playing your game, you could be casting a lot of spells with this base Warlock here at level 20. All right, so that was the base Warlock there from 1 to 20. So now let's talk about the different subclasses or different otherworldly patrons we can pick from. So the first one we can pick from is the Archfey. Now the Archfey is really interesting because it's kind of, the Fae are a very weird, otherworldly kind of being. Think of like your kind of fairies and pixies and stuff like that. They're very interesting, kind of magically attuned type of individuals. So this otherworldly patron is kind of interesting because they may want us to, strive for a greater magical power. They may want to settle an old grudge. They have much more whimsical kind of reasons behind the reason why they want to have somebody act instead of them and basically give them power. So very interesting choice here, and it can be very fun from a role-playing perspective. When we pick the Archfey here at level 1, we're actually going to get a new spell list. We're going to get spells that we can add to our spell list. Now, we're not going to learn these spells yet, but they're going to be choices that we can pick as we level up. So for first level spells, we can pick Fairy Fire and Sleep. Second level spells, we'll get Calm Emotions and Phantasmal Force. Third, we can get Blink and Plant Growth. Fourth level spells, Dominate Beast, Greater Invisibility. And then at 5th level, Dominate Person and Seeming. So again, we're not going to be able to get the spells that we don't have a spell slot level for. And again, that table over there is going to depict the table in that book is going to actually depict which spell levels we know. But we will have the option to pick Fairy Fire and Sleep at level 1 so instead of some of our other choices. So interesting little tidbits there. Also at level 1 with this Archfey patron, we're going to get Fey Presence. So at level 1 as an action, we can cause each creature in a 10-foot cube to make a wisdom saving throw. And if they fail, they're going to become charmed or frightened of us, our choice, depending on what we want, until the end of our next turn. And we can't use this again until we finish a long or short rest. So very interesting, weird little ability here, but it's, again, kind of a more whimsical, trickery, kind of domain style kind of ability. So kind of fits in that grain of the Feywild and the Fey patron. So interesting. At level 6, we're going to get Misty Escape. And basically what this means is that when we take damage, we can then use our reaction to turn invisible and teleport 60 feet to an unoccupied space and remain invisible until the start of our next turn or until we attack or use a spell. This is also going to recharge on a short or long rest. So very similar, very tricky kind of like Fey style magic where we get hit by something and then we disappear and now our enemies can't find us. So really cool. At level 10, we're going to get Beguiling Defenses. So 10th level, we are actually going to be immune to charm. And then when another creature tries to charm us ourselves, we can actually use our reaction to cause charm to go back at them. So they're going to have to make a wisdom save. And if they fail, they're going to be charmed by us for a minute or until they're damaged. So kind of like reversal of fortune on them, which is really cool. And then at level 14, we're going to get Dark Delirium, and which basically means we can use an action. We're going to choose a creature within 60 feet. They're going to have to make a wisdom save. If they fail, they're going to be charmed or frightened of us for a minute, our choice, or until we break concentration. And concentration is basically a rule for certain magical spells, and I'll leave a link up here for magic. We covered all the base rules of magic in another video, and I'll leave a link up there for you guys. But basically, it's going to last for a minute, or until we break concentration, or if the creature is damaged. Now, until this dark delirium ends, the creature is actually going to think it's in some weird mystical realm, and it can only hear itself, you, and the realm that it's in. So very interesting, but it's basically going to kind of incapacitate a creature basically for a minute until it, again, gets damage, concentration, all those things. And this is going to recharge under short or long rest. So it's going to be able to be used quite a bit, but again, it's a very interesting kind of style of trickery and fey magic, which I really like. All right, so that was the Archfey patron. So now let's talk about the Fiend. So the Fiend is kind of exactly what you think. It's a demon or some sort of evil entity that's going to kind of give you powers in order to be able to, generally speaking, get more powers of its own. So this is a very interesting kind of relationship. There's usually a lot of tension, a lot of role-play moments that happen, which may put you and your patron at opposite ends of the spectrum, or you could be an evil character. So you guys may have the same goal. So, but eventually there's going to be a little bit of strife because one of you is going to want to be more strong than the other, and depending on how things go, could be really interesting. Now, like the Archfey, we're also going to get some spells as well. So for first level spells, we're going to get Burning Hands and Command. Second levels, we're going to get Blindness, Deafness, Scorching Ray. Third level, third level spells is we're going to get Fireball, Stinging Cloud. Fourth level spells, Shield, Fire Shield, and Wall of Fire. And then for fifth level spells, we're going to get Flame Strike and Hollow. So very fire themed, very demon, hells, you get the idea. It's a very interesting kind of like demonic style patron, so it's going to be very interesting. At level 1, we're also going to get Dark One's Blessing. So basically, when we reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points, we're going to get temporary hit points equal to our charisma modifier plus our warlock level. So we're going to be able to heal ourselves, provided that we're taking creatures out and kind of appeasing our patrons' thirst for death, I guess. We're also going to get Dark One's Luck at level 6. When we make an ability check or saving throw, we can actually add a d10 to the roll, and we can do so after seeing the initial roll, but before we know what the roll effect is going to be. And this is going to recharge on a short or long rest. So we're going to kind of almost get our own bardic inspiration for ourselves here at level 6. So really cool. But again, it's because our demon patron is giving us that luck ability. So could be very problematic in the future. At level 10, we're going to get Fiendish Resilience, so we're going to be able to pick a damage type whenever we finish a long or short rest, and we're not going to be resistant to that damage type until we pick a new one. Damage from magical or silvered weapons will actually ignore this resistance, depending on what kind of resistance you pick, so something to keep in mind. And then at level 14, we're going to get Hurl Through Hell, and basically whenever we hit a creature with an attack, they're going to be transported into one of the lower planes of hell. This creature is going to disappear, and it's going to hurl through this nightmare landscape, and it's going to be kind of shocked and awed and basically terrified when it comes back. At the end of our next turn, the target creature is going to return to the space it previously occupied or one really close to it. Now, if the target was a fiend, it's going to be fine. But if the target's not a fiend, it's going to actually take 10d10 psychic damage. A lot of damage. And because it had to deal with this horrifying experience, of course it's going to take psychic damage. Now, this ability of Hurl Through Hell is going to recharge on a long rest. So, again, a lot of these very interesting demonic style abilities coming from that Fiend patron, so very cool. All right, and then our third choice that we can pick for a patron is going to be the Great Old Ones. So the Great Old Ones are very interesting. They're usually depicted in a variety of different ways. Cthulhu is a good example. They're usually some very interesting, not necessarily colossus, but a very interesting type of creature that gets chosen as the Great Old One. And usually they have some sort of agenda to either become more powerful or they want to have influence on the realms of the gods. So a very interesting type of patron here. They're also going to get their own spell list or addition to our spell list. Level 1 spells are going to give us Dissonant Whispers, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Level 2 spells are going to give us Detect Thoughts, Phantasmal Force. Third level spells, Clairvoyance and Sending. Fourth levels, Dominate Beast and Evard's Black Tentacles. And then fifth level spells, we're going to get Dominate Person and Telekinesis. So interesting kind of choices here with our Great Old One spell list. At level 1, we're also going to get Awakened Mind, and we're going to be able to speak telepathically to any creature within 30 feet. Now, we don't need to share the language for them to understand, but they need to know at least one language. But we're going to be able to speak telepathically to any creature within 30 feet. So interesting kind of like role-playing kind of thing here. It almost reminds me a little bit of the Mind Flayer a little bit too, which I think is kind of also a little bit of what this kind of Old One kind of shtick is going for as well. At level 6, we're also going to get Entropic Ward. Now, whenever a creature makes an attack roll against us, we're going to be able to use our reaction to pose disadvantage on the roll, and if they miss, we're going to get an advantage on our next attack roll against them until the end of our next turn. This is going to recharge on a short or long rest as well, so very interesting kind of mind games we're playing here as this great old one, Warlock. At level 10, we're going to get Thought Shield, and basically we're going to get resistance to psychic damage, and whenever a creature deals psychic damage to us, they're also going to take the same amount of psychic damage back at them. Our thoughts are also not going to be able to be read by telepathy or any other means that are going to basically be able to read our thoughts unless we allow it. So again, very mindful, psychic style, kind of like telepathic, telekinetic kind of powers. Again, very Mind Flayer-esque in my opinion, very Eldritch Horror style. So very interesting kind of choices here. At level 14, we're going to get Create Thrall. So we're going to be able to use an action to touch a incapacitated humanoid, and that creature is going to be charmed by us until the Remove Curse spell is cast on it. Or unless we decide to use this feature again on something else. But basically, we're going to get a creature to be charmed by us in perpetuity, which, depending on what we're doing, could be very interesting. Again, kind of reminds me about Mind Flayers a little bit, and maybe that's kind of the vein this great old one's kind of going with. Who knows? But we're going to be able to communicate telepathically to this charmed creature as long as we're both in the same plane of existence as well. So, again, very interesting abilities here with our great old one Patron. That's actually going to conclude all the different subclass options that we have here for the Warlock. So now we're actually going to go over to the computer and kind of break down that level 1 character sheet for our newer players. So I'll see you over there. All right, so now that we're over here at the computer, we can go over that first level character sheet. So in order to do that, we're actually going to come over here to the internet. We're going to go to dnd.wizards.com. We're going to scroll over to gameplay, hit character sheets. It's going to lead us to this page. We're going to click on this guy. It's going to download us a zip file. We're going to open it up, and I picked the 3-page sheet here. You could go with the form fillable 1-pager, but I need 3 pages because I have a spellcasting Warlock. And here we are. We have Victor here. He is a human Warlock level 1. And now the reason why we picked human is because humans actually are the easiest one to use, because all they get as a base human is they get +1 to all their ability scores. And ability scores are these things right over here, and the way we calculate these is I just use the standard array. There's a couple of different ways you can do it, but the standard array basically is 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8 distributed amongst these any way we choose, and then because we're a human, we're going to add +1 to everything. So that's why our charisma is 16, and we kind of talked about why that's important, but I chose 16 for my charisma for a very good reason. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate our hit points. So Warlocks are going to get a D8 hit die. And we're going to have one of these at level 1, if I can get my computer to cooperate. And then the way we figured out our hit points is that we're going to take the highest number we can roll on that D8, and then we're going to add our Constitution modifier. So that's going to be a +2. So our hit point maximum here at level 1 is going to be 10 hit points. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out our proficiencies in armor, weapons, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to come down here. And for armor proficiencies, we're going to be proficient in light armor. So we'll put that in here right now. And then for weapons, we're actually going to just get simple weapons. So no whole lot of choices here, but there's a reason for that, and we'll get into that a little bit. And then for tool proficiencies, we're actually not going to have any. So again, the Warlock, very interesting kind of class. It's much more of a spellcasting heavy class, so that's why we don't really get a whole lot of weapons, but just something to keep in mind. Now, our proficiency bonus here at level 1 is going to be +2, and then we're going to be proficient in both charisma and wisdom saving throws. So that's going to change these. We're going to add that charisma bonus, or that proficiency bonus, to these numbers here, which come from over here. So we had that +3, and as you can see here, that 1 wisdom was from here, and that's going to make that a +3. So easy enough. Then we're going to be able to pick from a number of different skills here. We're actually going to pick from Arcana, Deception, History, Intimidation, Investigation, Nature, and Religion. I chose Arcana because our guy is going to know a lot of things to do with magic, so that 0 becomes a +2. And then I chose Intimidation because I want my guy to be kind of scary, so Intimidation is now going to be a +5, so really nice. Now we're going to come over here to equipment. So we're going to pick a couple different things here at level 1. We're going to be able to choose between a light crossbow and 20 bolts or any simple weapon. I'm just going to pick the light crossbow. Just makes my life easier here when we're first starting out. And then we're also going to be able to pick between a Scholar's Pack and a Dungeoneer's Pack. I'm just going to choose a Dungeoneer's Pack just because it has some pretty interesting kind of stuff that I want for my Warlock to have. And then we're also going to get leather armor. We're just going to get leather armor. We're also going to get a simple weapon. I'm just going to pick the hand axe just because it's a fun one to play with. And then we're also going to get 2 daggers. So I'll just put ×2 daggers. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to calculate our armor class. So for our armor class, typically it's going to be 10 plus our dexterity bonus if we're not wearing any armor. But because we're wearing this leather armor, it's going to become 11 plus our dexterity. So 11 plus 2 is going to be a 13 armor class. So not too bad for our base level 1 Warlock. And then our initiative is going to be a +2 from our dexterity bonus. And then our speed is going to be 30 feet because humans move 30 feet. All right, next we're going to be talking about our weapons. So for weapons, we can come back down here. We can see that light crossbow, so we'll put in light crossbow. Our attack bonus is going to be a +4 because it's actually going to be derived. Any ranged weapon typically is going to be using our dexterity modifier for its attack stat. So we got a +2 here. We're going to add our proficiency bonus here because we're proficient in our light crossbows to get a +4. And we're going to be doing 1d8 +2 piercing damage. Again, that +2 coming from our attack stat up here from our dexterity of a +2. And then we're actually going to have a range on this light crossbow of 80, if I can fit it here, 80, 320. So our short range is going to be 80 feet. Our long range is going to be 320 feet. And basically what that means is that anything shorter than 80 feet, we're going to roll 1d20. We're going to add that 4, and we're going to see if we hit. If we're shooting beyond 80 feet but less than 320 feet, we're going to roll 2 d20s. Pick the lowest one, add that 4, and see if we hit. So, and then anything beyond that 320, we're not going to be able to hit them at all. So there's going to be a certain range on these ranged weapons, so just keep that in mind. Next, we're going to put in the 2 daggers. I'll just put ×2 daggers. Say if we wanted to wield them in both hands at the same time, 2-weapon fighting. Depends on what you want to do. Now, daggers have the finesse trait, so we can actually use our dexterity bonus here again. And I've talked about the finesse bonus with, or the finesse trait with a number of different weapons. The rapier has it, the daggers have it. And for a full list of those equipment items, you can either look in the player's handbook or D&D Beyond, and other websites like that will have information on all the weapons that you could ever want to know about. We're going to be doing 1d4 +2 piercing again. The dagger does have a range. It's 2060. We're probably not going to be throwing this dagger too often, but we'll just throw that in there. And then we're going to put the hand axe in here. This one's only going to have a +1 to hit because we're going to be its proficiency plus our -1, so +1. And we're going to be doing 1d6 -1 damage. So, I mean, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage with this thing, but the purpose of this is depending on what kind of pact we choose. If we choose Pact of the Blade, we'll be able to use this hand axe instead of our dagger. So depending on what you want to do, could be really useful. All right, so now we're going to actually talk about our other skills we get here at level 1. So we do get our Pack Magic feature. I am going to choose the Archfey Patron, just so that way I make sure I have a patron here. And we're going to get Pack Magic. So things to keep in mind with Pack Magic, we're going to get 2 cantrips here at level 1. We're also going to get 1 level 1 spell slot. And we're going to have 2 spells known as part of our Pack Magic here, level 1. We're going to come all the way down here. I'm going to ignore this for now. This is actually all kind of like role-playing kind of stuff you can fill out at your leisure, depending on the kind of character you want to play. And then spell casting is down here. So we are a Warlock of level 1. Our spell casting ability is going to be Charisma. Spell save DC is going to be calculated based on the equation 8 plus our proficiency bonus plus our Charisma modifier. So in our case, 8 plus 2 plus 3 is going to be 13. Spell attack bonus is going to be based off of our proficiency bonus plus our charisma modifier, so that's going to be a +5. And then I'll just put here, just so that we remember, 2 cantrips known, just so that way we have it here. We have 1 level spell slot, and we know 2 spells known. And these are changed as we level up based on the Warlock table that we talked about earlier in the video, and you can also find that on D&D Beyond, link in the description below. For that table. And then as part of our Archfey Patron, we're actually going to be able to learn a few different spells here. So for first level spells, we can add to our spell list, not to our spells known. Just so we know that, so that way if we want to choose to pick those, we can, are Fairy Fire and Sleep. So we can add those to our spell list, and we'll just keep that in mind. We could even just say that those are going to be the 2 that we know this time. So up to us, depending on how we want to play our game. And then we're also going to get Fey Presence. So I'll put Fey Presence here. This ability is going to allow us, as an action, to cause a creature pick a creature within 30 feet, and we're going to be able to cause them to make a wisdom save against our spell save DC. And if they fail, they are going to be charmed or frightened by us, our choice, of course, until the end of our next turn. And it's going to be a short, long rest recharge. So we get to use that kind of Fey Presence ability that we talked about a little bit earlier when we talked about the Archfey Patron. And that is basically going to wrap up our first level character sheet. We don't get a ton of weird, interesting, kind of weird stuff. Like, obviously, the Sorcerer had a lot of weird stuff. But, again, we're going to be getting some spell slots. We're going to have some ability to do some damage. We have this armor class. We get a very interesting ability, unlike some of the first level characters get. A lot of the first level characters just get kind of like an attack ability and some spell casting. But we're also going to get this really interesting, different Fey Presence ability from our patron. So the only other things that we need to do before we go to the gaming table is we are going to have to pick a background. And I went over backgrounds in a character creation video, and I'll leave a link up here for that. I will go over backgrounds much more comprehensively later on in a future video, so be on the lookout for that. But for right now, make sure that you pick a background before you sit down at the table for the first time. But this is basically going to cover everything you're going to need for that first level Warlock. So let's get off the computer and kind of wrap up our conversation about Warlocks. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to finish our discussion here about the Warlock for Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. I hope you learned a lot. I know there's a lot of information there. I did put timestamps down below in the description if you need to skip around. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the video, but I'll put a little bubble there in the beginning. But again, very interesting kind of character. A lot of roleplay specific stuff you can imagine with this Archfey, Fiend, or Great Old One patron. Like I said. And if you have any questions about the Warlock or anything else Dungeons & Dragons in general, make sure you, again, leave a comment down in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell for the channel, because I'm probably going to answer a lot of those questions, and I'm going to go over a lot of other interesting Dungeons & Dragons topics in the future on the channel. I hope you guys learned a lot, and until next time, I'll see y'all soon.